Just
Why?
double
Because you're
check.
seeing it?
No, I'm seeing it, but it just sounds different. Or is it a different mic?
No, it's the same. I'm in a
Okay.
different location.
I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
realize that. It does sound a little different.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably sitting differently. I'm sitting differently.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
wailing
probably
on my
fine.
prostate. The other chair, that's probably why I did it, because
We are
I had
live. I'll
to.
just remind you.
It
So, it says live. All
No,
says
right.
live right there.
All right. Yeah, it does say live. By the way, Jerry, how's 1Password doing? Your buddy there. Your buddy Juan. Do you remember
these
the
are just like
reference?
these are
No,
gags here.
these are gags. Yeah.
These
No,
are
it's a new,
pulling
a
out
new,
sight gags.
a new serialism. You texted us about something to do with 1Password, like the name Juan and the last
Yeah, I
name
remember it was
password.
good old
It's like I
Siri.
just thought it was just really silly, you know. It's like how many times do we text each other about 1Password and Siri thought you were saying Juan Password
Yeah.
as if that's something she
Interesting
did.
last name.
All right, you
Password.
can just you can cut everything up until this point in the show, and then we'll
Okay.
do. Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power featuring all three of us. Now, I'm very curious. You guys just recorded a show, just the two of you. How did that go? That's a very rare occurrence.
It was rare, and I think we killed it. I kind of think you could take a while off, Joe, at this point.
I'm down. I'm down. All right, that's all. That's all I
It
needed
was
to hear.
rarer than an Elvis sighting.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in the intervening weeks here, since we last recorded, we had, of course, the big liquid glass announcement from Apple. Did you guys cover any of the announcements at the latest Worldwide Developers Conference?
No, we just focused on ourselves, pretty much.
Okay. Good.
So
All right, good.
yeah.
That's what the people want to hear. I just thought it'd be worth kind of recapping for people. We have between now and probably October when these new OSs will ship. Of course, everybody knows they're known as the 26-year releases, which I think will make it much easier going forward. Although I did think it was a little interesting that it kind of sounds like it shortens the length of time of support from our client's perspective potentially. Like, I don't know if you guys thought about it like this, but so they're released in October of 25, right?
Mhm.
And they're called, it's like, let's just take Mac OS 26 for example. Mac OS 26 will no longer be supported when Mac OS 28 comes out. So do I have that right? I think I have that right. Well, this
Wait,
whole
no, I
thing is
think
based on that. Do I have that wrong?
it will. I think it will support the previous two, won't it?
Sorry, 29. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
29, which will come out in October of 28. If they follow the traditional playbook. So October of 2028, they'll release Mac OS 29. That's when Mac OS 26 will no longer be supported.
Yeah.
You got a
So
problem with that?
yeah,
I
so
think
so
so.
this is what it comes down to, right? So June 2028, they announce Mac OS 29, and that's when Mac OS 26 will no longer be supported. So to clients, they're going to be thinking like it's only 2028. Like it's only 2 years old, right? Why are they not supporting Mac OS 26? So
Hmm.
it seems like it shortens, like in their head they're going to be thinking this is only a 2-year-old operating system. Like how could they stop supporting it when really they give you 3 full years of support of that OS. So it's just based on the naming and like the actual announcement and release schedule. It seems like it perceptually like shortens the support window from a client's perspective. We'll see if we get any pushback on it, but
Yeah, I hear what
yeah.
you're saying. I think they're trying to follow like the car release method, right? Of like the year
Right.
before the year gets announced. But I think, at least in my head, a lot of, or many clients don't really know WWDC. I don't know that they pay attention to that timing, but October they will pay
Sure.
attention to for sure.
Right.
Which hopefully they see is just around the corner for the next year. But yeah, I get what you're
Right.
saying though.
Well, also like there is this kind of gray area between, now, like June of any given year and October when the thing is actually released, when they, support is a little iffy. Like if there's a 0 day, it seems like they probably will release a security update. But in previous years, they've kind of like taken a little bit of liberty with that, and they'll like abandon the prior OS a little bit sooner, depending on like the severity maybe.
Mhm.
Like as we get closer and closer to October, like they're going to stop supporting, what is it this year? Uh, Sonoma. Oh no, I don't know. Big Sur.
Yeah, Big Sur would be. I can't get
Yeah.
the names right either. It's going to be easier with years.
I know. Exactly. I'm actually really appreciative because like a lot of people have pointed out, which iOS version corresponds to which macOS version, and what year did that macOS version come out, and like when does it stop being support? It's very confusing. So yeah, just having a consistent year across all the OSs actually seems pretty smart.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the people have that thought process that you were mentioning, but we'll have to wait a
So
few years. So we'll have to come back
I
in a future show.
I am running liquid glass.
Nice. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had a feeling you might be. How is it?
Yeah, I just couldn't resist.
Yeah.
So there's not much. I mean, there's a little WYSIWYGs, the little screen animations, but there's really very little incompatibility that I'm seeing. It hasn't crashed on me. It's very stable, and this is the first developer release. So
Yeah.
everything works. Ring Central works. I'm still getting my text messages. The only crazy thing is I have a group text message with you guys, and let's see if it does it right now. You guys vibrate back and forth. The actual little circle,
Yeah.
will sometimes, go like that. It'll just be
Yeah,
just
that's
like
weird.
unstable. It's very weird. But other than that, it's good. No
Yeah, my
problems.
take on it is liquid glass looks really cool. A lot of people have talked about it, but it's something that it seems like will be hard for other, vendors to kind of fake. There's a lot of stuff that seems to work kind of at a lower level with the OS and across the various OSs and so on. So it looks cool. It
Mhm.
sounds like it will probably require a lot of work from some developers and some work from all developers. So that's the part where I think we're in for like maybe up to a year of like inconsistency across the OS. Like if your app is not updated to support liquid glass, there may be places where it works by default if it's been recompiled, and there may be places where it's just the old, manually configured interface that's not yet updated. Some developers may opt out of it entirely, and it's still going to look like the old-fashioned view for a while. So it's going to be inconsistent depending on the app and depending on the screen of the app and so on. And again, some apps will require a lot more work than others. But I think it's it's good that Apple's still trying to do new things like this, and it hasn't been it's been a while since they've done this, so it's kind of time, I think. So that's pretty
But
interesting.
I must say, there's nothing really revolutionary going on right now. It's an early release, so
Okay.
I'm not expecting it to be, mind blowing in any level. But I just think it won't be that jarring for a client of ours to move forward and upgrade. It'll be fine.
Nice. That'll be good.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, for me, in terms of the announcements and stuff, probably the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is not necessarily. I mean, the OS is cool. I'll probably actually download it a little bit earlier than I normally would, but it's the migration functionality for MDMs that's gonna be a game changer. I think. Well, you'll be able to move from one MDM to another without going through a whole wipe and all that stuff, and keep supervision status. So I think that'll be kind of interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. I mean, can you say more about that? Like the way it is now, it's all manual, right? You've got to like basically unenroll, remove an agent manually, et cetera, and then re-enroll. And if you want to be supervised, you have to actually erase and reinstall.
Yeah, on
Right?
iOS at least, or iOS, iPad OS. So what it looks like, and I'm still digging into it a little bit, but is that you'll be able to say, hey, I'm still supervised and managed, but I'm just moving over to this guy now. And
Right.
that would be pretty phenomenal, I would say, for situations like that. Like, I don't know, school changes vendors, or you move MDM suppliers or anything like that. It would be pretty big.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah,
client right now
that's big.
that's using Jamf Pro in the cloud, and for their iOS devices, and I wanted to move them to Adigy, and it just didn't make any sense to do that. Like,
Mhm.
why have to erase all these iPads and iPhones
Yeah.
Right.
because they weren't really going to save any money? You know, Jamf Pro. What's the official product name of that? Jamf Pro,
Yeah.
Sam?
But in
Yeah.
a school, you're probably getting a really good deal, I'm assuming. Did you say it was a school or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Then forget it.
No. I'm using the old Jamf now with that school,
Oh, okay.
but I have a client, a regular commercial client that's using Jamf Pro, and I wanted to move them to Adigy, and there's really no savings to speak of,
Hmm.
you know.
Well,
So
plus again,
that's,
like you're saying, they see the labor involvement, and it's
oh
not.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So that'll be good for certain MDM vendors then too, that they could actually attract business because hey, it's not so hard now, you know.
Right.
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 That's a good point. So basically, you'll need to upgrade to the latest OS, and then in theory, you'll be able to migrate MDM vendors.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not again. The how is something I'm still picking up on, but I think that's pretty. I'm going to continue to monitor it and see how simple it'll be.
Nice. That's a big one. Any other big, announcements from our side of things, like the MDM management, enterprise side?
I think the only other one that I remember off the top of my head is FileVault, which is actually another one that has bothered me over time. Like if you either switch MDM vendors or if you enroll a device, a computer that's already encrypted, you can't get those recovery keys without a script or doing some song and dance. But it looks like there'll be a way to automatically rekey devices, so that they'll just get a new encryption key or recovery key rather when you go from one MDM to another. So that'll be also very cool.
Yeah, that's really important too. Yeah, otherwise, what's the process there as of now? You have to basically, essentially, do you have to turn FileVault off and back on, or can you just script the,
You can script it, but like it requires, well, there's actually a tool called Escrow Buddy where it doesn't need user intervention, but it needs something to happen where either you have to prompt the user or Escrow Buddy can cycle it through and give you a new one, but it's not automatic. But now it's going to be all part of the MDM component.
Nice. I'm glad Apple's working on some of these things that, that people I was just going to say people like us, but it's more people like you, Sam, that would ask for that and benefit from that. Because to be honest,
we're all using
I mean, my world is a little bit simpler. I don't, I haven't even had to deal with a MDM migration, for example. I mean, not in recent years that I can think of, So, but yeah, those are very, very nice quality of life improvements for people in our world.
Your world, Sam, frightens and confuses us.
Confuses us. Yeah, exactly.
I was waiting for that, Jerry.
Yeah. Going back to my simple world of just the general approach here. So Tahoe does not work with any Intel MacBook Air or Mac Mini, which I thought is just a good thing to keep in mind. So I have an Intel. I agree about the MacBook Air. There was never a good Intel MacBook. Actually, the older Intel MacBook Airs were better than the later generation MacBook Airs, which is really interesting. Like, I mean, Sam and I have talked about this on the show, but there were a few model years there, and I can't remember if it was like 2017. It was certainly like 2018 and 2019 that were just really bad, and it's almost all of them. And I just again, like, this is one of those, like, Apple dodged something, like they dodged in Intel MacBook Air gate type situation, because there are cases where clients are just like, my MacBook Air it just runs so poorly, and it sounds like it's working really hard. Like, they're describing the fan basically running at full speed, and it feels hot, and it's just really, 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 really slow. And I've experienced this with two of Ashley's computers, two in a row, and they were just I'm glad they don't run Tahoe. So I agree about that. The Mac Mini, I've never had any particular issues with an Intel Mac Mini. I do have one still deployed to a client operating as a server, because they need not only file sharing, but also they run Photos app, accessing it from multiple different machines in their studio. They use essentially like screen sharing to access multiple user accounts on the server, and they're able to open the Photos libraries like that. in addition to running FileMaker. So because they have several different things that all run on this Mac, it made sense to keep using a Mac and not try to, switch to a Synology or something like that, especially for the Photos app part of that. And so we ended up just a few years ago, I'd have to double check when this was, but installing the latest generation Intel Mac Mini. This was, I think it was right before the Apple Silicon Mac Mini came out. And we went with a refurbished Mac Mini. It's running great, but clearly we see now end of life is coming in basically a year or two at this point. So just something to know if you've got any Mac Minis out there, any Intel Mac Minis out there, they will not run Tahoe, and therefore the clock is ticking.
I have
And
one
same
right
thing with
here.
the MacBook Air. Yeah, how do you use it? Is it for testing and?
For believe it or not, for my classroom. So I'm switching it out because you weren't on the show, but I just got myself a new M4. So
Nice.
such a slacker not joining every show. But yeah, so I swapped out my M1, and that's going to be my new Mac Mini.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, you saw the writing on the wall there, and, it's time. I still have a couple of Intel machines here. I really only need one, laptops that just sit in a stack underneath my actual everyday laptop, and they're just for testing. So there's still a role, as long as Intel machines are still supportable, again, for the next couple of years, for having one of these machines around. But yeah, in a client situation, we've talked about it before. It's probably worth revisiting, but we don't support a Mac. We don't support Mac hardware after Apple stopped supporting it. So once it no longer gets security updates, by rights, we should not be, in my opinion, we should not be supporting that. I mean, do you guys disagree with that at all? Have you heard from any colleagues of ours who want to keep shoehorning an old Mac that's, it's not getting security updates, but what's the harm? Or, hey, I can make it run the latest OS, even though it's not supposed to. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, usually I don't think of situations that I'd want to have that, but usually it's not because the consultant wants it, but it's because their arm is twisted from like older unsupported software or something like that, where
Sure.
and you can't convince the client to upgrade, or I'm sure we've all had clients like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I get calls like that, I just tell them we can work with you, but it would be best effort, and you have to understand that this is not standard practice for us. So we will work with you, but you have to understand it's like fixing an old car.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I guess the distinction would be kind of like you were saying, Sam, if there's some like tie to old software where like there is no upgrade path and they just, there's really no other solution for them. Or a case where there's like significant technical debt. And that's like, with, same as what Jerry was saying, like, best effort, maybe if I'm even willing to do it. I probably wouldn't do it for an existing client. Hopefully I would have helped them avoid getting to that point where, again, it's a situation where like, well, they'd have to upgrade their, they need to buy, I don't know, it's a specialized workflow where it's like an audio, recording workstation or something, and they need to buy like all new like audio interface cards and new hardware, new mixers, new software, and it's going to be like tens of thousands of dollars, or they could just buy a used machine on eBay and just hope for the best. Like in that situation, I might do best effort, or I might just say it's not for me in that situation. But yeah, for any existing client where the all they're trying to do is like keep old hardware in use rather than kind of decommission it, or avoid buying a new Mac Mini, at the cost of all of $1,000 or something. I think that's not a good enough reason for me.
Avoid using Creative Cloud and trying to use some old DVD disc
Yeah.
that they're still loading the software from.
I thought of that example and I thought that can't still be relevant, but yeah, I bet you're right. There's still people that are like, I have a copy of CS6 that I, wink, wink, got from my old employer or took from school or whatever. Yeah. And they don't want to buy the new thing and subscribe. Yeah. Just shaking his fist at Adobe.
That was the last version, right? It was like piratable.
I think so.
Maybe. Yeah. CS6. Probably like where it was like a lifetime, perpetual use license or whatever. It wasn't like a subscription, and so you could crack the key probably or whatever. Yeah. I bet you're right. So Tahoe does support a few Intel models. So this is, and they've already announced this is basically the end of the road, but Tahoe does support the MacBook Pro 16-inch 2019 model. So that's about the oldest model supported. The MacBook Pro 13-inch 2020 with 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. So that was that like last generation Intel MacBook Pro 13-inch that, you know, had 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports in it. The iMac Retina 5K 27-inch, not the 21-inch from 2020. So the Retina 5K 27-inch 2020 model, but again, not the 21.5-inch from 2020. And the Mac Pro 2019, what do we lovingly call that? The trash can model? Was that what it was?
I thought it was the 2019 had to be the trash can, right? Because I remember there was a 2013. I thought
the
that's
2013 was the trash can. Maybe
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, this was the redesign with the really special like cooling, you know, design or whatever that was.
the cheese grater.
The cheese grater. Yeah, the holes in the front. Exactly. Yeah, not the trash can, the cheese grater. That's right. Exactly. That's the one. So yeah. So just so you know, so everybody knows out there. But you know, clearly end of line for those. They've also said that this is the last macOS version with Rosetta 2 included. So it's the last macOS version that will run Intel apps in that compatibility mode, which is, you know, maybe a little surprising because it runs so well. Like, I guess, you know, my opinion would be like, why not keep supporting it? But the reason why not is just, you know, probably development resources, I imagine, and support resources. Interestingly, they do say that those systems will continue to receive security updates for 3 years. So the Intel Macs that will run Tahoe will continue to receive security updates for 3 years. But I guess that's just their standard. Is that just the standard window that I was talking about earlier?
I guess that's that 3-year time frame. So makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's right. So yeah, and you know, we'll see again how closely they follow that. They're explicitly saying that next year's macOS 27 will require Apple Silicon, just to be explicit about that. So this really means like basically for all Intel Macs, we have 1 or 2 more years of support. I mean, I guess you could say 3 for those, you know, those exceptional ones, but very few. So yeah,
on a
writing's on
related
the wall for Intel finally. Yeah.
Yeah, on a related note, I'm selling my Mac Mini Intel if anybody wants.
Nice. Sooner the better, right? Because I mean, as
Yeah.
soon as it's really like, you know, the support wanes. Although it'll probably pick back up the value at a certain point, you know, in a few years. Like if you keep it working, you know, really smoothly, there may be a market for it. You know, when people start to need Intel, you know, need a machine to run Intel in a few years.
Well, it's similar to Jerry and I were talking about on a recent show about the older 5th gen iPod touches rather that you can be converted and added additional storage to. So that's
20 years. That's all you need to wait, and you know,
Right.
you can make a couple of dollars. I don't know. Like all this sounds to me like sometimes when I get these calls from these clients, I'm like, you just need to stop using this computer. You just need to buy a new computer. Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
Agreed.
Yeah.
I find trying to squeeze the lemon and get as much juice out of it as you possibly can just ends up being diminishing returns because they're the first people to complain. Like, why is my computer so slow?
Right.
Well, you're running software on it. Yeah, you're running software on it that really wasn't designed for it.
Right.
You're running software that's, you know, you're running on a computer that's over 6 years old now.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a 2019.
Yeah. It is interesting though. Sometimes they'll tell you it's only 4 or 5 years old, you know, and so first of all, they might be totally wrong, right? Or
they usually
what they'll say is they'll say it's like 3 years old, and actually it's 5, right? And it might be 5 based on date of purchase, but it's a 2019 model, you know, so it's 6 years old from date of release. And that's the date that matters. So like Sam said earlier about the car analogy, you know, the model year, like they'll release, you know, halfway through the year or late in the year with next year's naming, just like Apple's doing. macOS 26 is coming, you know, it was announced now in the middle of 2025 and will ship with a 2 or 3 months to go in 2025. And, you know, that that's the kind of important date, or the date when the model was released. So if there's a 2025, I don't know, have there been any Macs released yet in 2025? Or let's go with the 2024 model, right? If somebody buys a 2024 model, like at the end of 2025, when it's still current, or maybe when it has just been released, or just been replaced by a 2025 model or 2026 model, um, in their head, it's brand new. They just bought it. They walked out of the Apple store. They had the unboxing experience, all the pomp and circumstance. They love this whole experience. They remember distinctly when they bought it, and when they brought it home, and it's still got that new Mac smell, but it's a 2024 release, so and right now that's fine. It doesn't matter, it's going to be supported for years to come. But that's the more important date in terms of Apple's support, when they stop supporting it, with newer Mac OS updates and security updates. And so from the client's perspective, again, they might have bought it a full year and a half, in an extreme case, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years if they buy it refurbished. They buy it, brand new from Apple. It maybe, let's say it's refurbished, they still think of it as pretty new or brand new or new. And so
New to you.
to them, yeah, it's new to them, and yet it might have been released technically 2 or 3 years ago. And so that's where you get these discrepancies, where actually they may only get 4 or 5 years of support from Apple, with that quote unquote new Mac. So we've taken to naming the Macs. I've had to train some of the guys on my team over the years about naming a Mac. It's like, Jane's iMac new, right? It's like, hey, that's great. It's new. It's new today, right? I get that. Like, yeah, that's the new one as distinct from the old one. But how long is this name new going to be relevant? Like, I'm going to be staring at this name in my system 3 years from now. New. It's not new anymore, right?
I used to work with a guy.
Go ahead, Jerry. Yeah.
At the manufacturing shop, and when we would get an updated or revised blueprint, he would write on it "latest print."
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's like,
latest as of
said,
when?
Yeah, this means nothing. This
Right.
is like, this is gibberish.
Yeah. Right.
You're wasting the pen that you used to write latest print.
Right.
Stop.
Right. Exactly.
Joe,
yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I had the same conversation with Mike, because Matt would put something iMac new, and I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand.
According to who? Yeah. Right. New as of when? Like, can you not?
And the point
go ahead.
Yeah, the point you're trying to make too about them buying this machine, they were price driven. They went to Best Buy. They saw one that was going to be $500 more, and this one was less. But it's the one. It's old new stock,
right?
Or new old stock. New old stock.
New old stock.
Yeah, it's
right. And they see the specs. Oh, it's a 13-inch. It's the same
yeah,
thing.
beautiful. It's the same thing.
It's 16 gigs, whatever.
I'm a good shopper.
Or even worse, 8 gigs versus 16 gigs. What do I need 8 more gigs for? All I do is I run Microsoft Office and the web and email and ChatGPT, and and then they keep listing things. It's like, I don't do very much, but they list like 10 apps that they always want running, and they go with the 8 gig from 3 years ago, because they think they even compare the specs and they think, that's fine. It's good enough for me. I don't do a lot. And you're right, it comes into play. And this is the conversation I try to have with them, is in terms of longevity. Like, it's the same thing as if you buy, sure, you could buy last year's car model right off the lot, brand new, but it's last year's model. And it's, as they say, right, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's depreciated by like whatever, amount. Because if you were to resell it today, you're competing against the brand new model. So you're not going to get the original sticker price. And that's why you get a good deal on it. And, with a car, like it's not like the manufacturer is going to say, the car has to come off the road now because it's been 7 years, whatever. If you want to drive it into the ground until it just totally stops working, or it doesn't pay to fix or whatever, maybe that's not a bad deal with cars. But with computers, when there is a ticking clock in terms of the vendors, support, and there are real issues like security issues, that's a different consideration that a lot of people don't apply that correct logic to. So yeah, I mean, I love this like term new, because it's like, it's clearly relative. So like, how short-term thinking is it to label it new? Like, new compared to what? So we've just started naming it with the model year of the release, which then, you know, a client will say, if they see me naming it, right, and I'm sitting here, clearly it's in the middle of 2025, they must look at me like, you know, I'm totally checked out, or like I'm some kind of idiot when I'm typing 2024, you know, like, oh, you know, it's 2025, welcome to the, and I'm like, why? I know, but actually, I know you just bought this, but it was released in 2024, and that's the date that's relevant to us in terms of supporting this computer. So it's still brand new. It's great. You're going to love it for years to come. But just know that this is probably going to mean that Apple will stop supporting it, you know, in
Do you
whatever,
remember how
six
long
years.
it was that Apple had the same Mac Mini that they never refreshed, and they were still selling them off the
Mm.
shelves for
It was like
years?
it was like 4 years, I want to say. There was one really extreme case of the Intel era there. Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah.
It really was. And it was like don't buy for like 3 years on Mac Rumor, you know,
Right.
on the buyer's guide, right? It was like don't
And
buy.
everybody thought, you know, the
Yeah.
Mac Mini was done,
Hmm.
right?
That's true. Yeah. Because when was that
Tombstone.
though? Trying to remember the year gap that was, but
It's a good question. Like which
when
Well,
model year?
I believe I was, we've been
I
here
think
like
it was
4 years. Yeah, I was
2012, I
living
wanted to
here.
say. Okay.
No, I think it's a
So it was
lot more recent than that.
really? You were already
I'll
in the
I'm
castle?
in Mac Tracker. Yeah, Jerry, I think you might be right. It's the late 2014. So here are the model years. There was this is how regularly they updated the thing. There was a Mac Mini Mac OS server model, 2009. There was a mid 2010 model. There was a Mac Mini server mid 2010 model. There was a mid 2011 model, also with the server version. There was a late 2012 model. So like almost I mean, literally every single year they released a new model until 2012. Then there was a 2014, so they skipped 2 years, and then nothing until 2018. And it came out in like October of 2018. So it was, you know, it was a 4 year gap between 2014 and 2018. And so my
Yeah,
client
it's
has the
insane.
2018 model, which as of today is what, 7 years old and will not run Tahoe. And, you know, therefore the support will run out like when Sequoia stops getting updates, which will be in, you know, 2 years.
Did you guys take a lot of those Mac Minis apart? Like replace the hard drives or the
Yeah.
server one with the double drive? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember those days. I
That was
kind of
prior
liked
to,
doing that back then.
yeah, way back. I did it less so in that flat design, but like in those earlier, you know,
Oh, the
chunky
earlier
ones,
ones were a
the
nightmare to
the
work on.
putty knife. You had to use like a shave,
Ah,
like a
th-
sharpened putty knife to get in there. It was
yeah,
like,
yeah. Those were
yeah,
horrible to work on.
yeah, those were, yeah,
Yeah.
they were, yeah. You could cut yourself on some of those. They were, you know, all the metal casing and stuff. Yeah, those were rough.
By the way, I've got a Mac Mini M2 that I'm M2 that I'm really happy with.
What do you use
Nice.
it for?
Just saying, just a hooray for me, you know. It's a hooray for
Hey,
me story.
that's good.
I have it headless. We've talked about this
Oh
before.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It sort of, you
Plex.
know, when I'm served. Well, I don't run it as a Plex server. I run the Plex server off of the Synology uh, storage.
Mm,
But you know, when I'm surreptitiously getting things off of the internet, I don't have to do any of that on my computer. I can, you know, start up my VPN and, you know, do my skullduggery on the headless Mac Mini.
mm-hmm.
Not because I'm worried about it. It's just easier, you know. It's just the triage machine. Or it's really great, you know, if you have a client that you need to download, if they have a small repository on Backblaze, you could do it
Yeah.
right there and you don't even have to worry about it. There's some long processes I've done before where I've been just so grateful to have it. It's been a terrific little machine.
Yeah. You know me, I'm always trying to justify more hardware, and you know that the one that came out right after yours, Jerry, is the one that's like the like taller, fatter, whatever, like thicker model Mac Mini, a 2024 model, with the M4. And so, you know, I was tempted just because it looks cool. It's like fast, new hardware with the M4 Pro and all that. And it was just for those sorts of reasons that I started to, you know, turn my gears with justifying it. Like sometimes
Actually,
there's yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little brain dead here tonight. That's the one I have. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you have the latest, the M4. That's a
Yeah. I
beautiful
got that.
machine.
But I have the one 8 gigs, 256 gigs of RAM. I just
Okay.
went as cheap
Yeah.
as possible. Got it on an educational plan. Dirt cheap.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. They're great. And it was for those types of reasons. I'm thinking sometimes there's a splash top, connection that I don't want to close and lose. And I might want to like take my laptop to a coffee shop or something, or I need to restart, whatever.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like there's room for, in theory, like this headless machine that just runs and is kind of always on for that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's
A long
amazing. Yeah.
download.
And it's so
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Nice.
actually sold my M2 to a client and just forgot all about that.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this time of year is always interesting thinking about again in terms of support with clients and what we can what we will and won't tolerate from our clients and in terms of support, and so yeah, it's good to kind of get ahead of that and start to like for me, we're reviewing the clients that have not yet upgraded to Sequoia, and we're prioritizing getting those companies and even those residential clients up to date, because now's the window of time before the new OS comes out, when they can still update on their side pretty easily. They can upgrade. Once the new OS comes out, we kind of want to block that built-in upgrade mechanism, and then it's a little bit harder for them to upgrade to the year-old OS, and also harder to justify. Like Apple's saying, upgrade to Tahoe, it's great, you're gonna love it, it's got a new look, there are all the exciting features, right? They're going to be inundated with Apple marketing, and at that point, it's going to be a little bit harder to say, we recommend upgrading, just not to that, and then making that distinction as to why not. It's almost easier to kind of go radio silent on that and just wait until we do recommend Tahoe, which will probably be, Sam, you said you might upgrade a little sooner. I don't know if you were referring to Tahoe or iOS, but
well, I might
yeah.
iOS first, and then I think because I think I feel less stressed about my iOS
Yep.
version being on beta than I
Same.
would my daily driver. But I'll probably upgrade one of my test computers.
Yeah, and it's probably way too early to tell like what we might recommend to clients, but for years we were all on the same page about upgrading to like waiting for the 0.3 version. And I think Adam Angst of Tidbits Content Network would often, kind of repeat that. Like we recommend waiting until the 0.3 update. That's when typically everyone knows that, they've fixed all the bugs and, worked out some of the little issues. And by then also it usually means it's now, February or something like that. And probably a lot of the vendors have also caught up and fixed compatibility issues and things like that. But I remember Sequoia, we were earlier too. I think it was like the 0.1 that we were like ready to start recommending. So I wonder what it'll be for Tahoe. I felt with Sequoia and prior, they had gone through a lot of the big, even going way far back to the 32 to 64-bit transition. Like there were a few kind of like major transitions that we had to get through, and they've pretty much gotten through those. And now with Tahoe, they're like, hey, let's change the whole UI again. So I don't know, like maybe that's going to introduce more bugs again. I'm not really sure, but I guess we'll see. So, somewhere between the 0.1 and the 0.3 is probably where we'll recommend it. And that might take, I probably am not going to be recommending everybody upgrade like mid-December. So if it's, and therefore it's probably not going to be until the new year that we're starting to recommend it, like maybe early January, mid-January, something like that. And so there'll be this window of time when Tahoe ships probably in October until January that we're probably not going to be recommending upgrading. So if they're not running Sequoia or certainly Sonoma by then, that's kind of an issue, because then they're going to, if they're today running the one before Sonoma, I'm usually the guy that can remember all the OS versions. But somebody
Ventura,
help me out here. Ventura, thank
Ventura,
you.
yeah.
If they're running Ventura or prior, like at this point in time, that's a liability, right? Come October, if we're not ready to go to Sequoia to Tahoe, and there isn't an easy path for them to go to Sequoia at that point, So yeah. Anyway, I would encourage people, our listeners out there, to get your clients to Sequoia now, so that you don't have to worry about just that lack of support with security updates come October, and you don't have to worry about upgrading sooner than you might like to Tahoe at that point.
These are the things that keeps Joe up at night, Sam. Sleepless nights, staring at the ceiling.
I'll tell you, this is what this generates income. this generates revenue, right? Because there are clients that I will say, hey, we recommend upgrading. We can do it for you after hours, like if it's a company and they can just leave the Macs on, or we can send the prompt to their end user and they can do it themselves. Or if it's a residential user, a lot of times they want to have us do it, but other residential users will say you can do it yourself, with our guidance, or we can do it for you. They'll ask, can you do it for me? Great, no problem. It's like look, it's not like really, increasing the revenue like by a ton, but in aggregate, it's not bad. I don't know what you guys charge, but it's typically about 15 minutes of billable time. And for me, it's like clicking a few buttons, logging in after the upgrade to make sure it went well, maybe doing some other software updates there. If they're already on our managed service plan, they're getting all their apps are already up to date typically. So there's not much to it, but it does mean, a quarter hour of billable time without a ton of effort. So why not? Why not do that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's a lot less scary to do it now remotely than it used to be. So
Sure.
That's at least better.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out if Jerry's Subway stop reminds me of, like, I thought it was maybe at first it was an ad for TechServe back in the day in New York City, but they were one more stop down on 23rd. So was that just something?
Modified. Yeah, I
Huh?
modified the type. I think I got one for MacWorks too, but this is I run a parallel site that also generates no income for me. So that's it's not.
You do make it up in
it's-
volume though, right? Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I'm gonna have more by the end of the year.
Nice.
So I don't even think I use it on the site. I was just messing around with it. I think I probably copped that idea from somebody else. Get one of those subway signs and just black it all out and match the font and then put on there whatever you want to put on there. It's kind of fun for marketing purposes. If you don't know what we're talking about, you could watch us live or taped on YouTube, and you could see all these great things like what we look like in person, which is sometimes a benefit and sometimes not.
That's true. Yeah, it
Depends on the
if I've
haircut.
had a haircut. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, so
what else, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to report on this yet, but I did make the move to 1Password MSP.
Oh, nice.
Recently.
Oh,
Yeah, like I wish I had more to say just yet. I have it set up, but I will tell you my experience was pretty good. I was a little surprised because so just to break it all down, I think they sent out a mailing of some kind, right? An email that said, like, I forget how it was broadcast to us, like we should move to MSP. But we all got it, right? You guys received it as well?
I'm pretty sure I got an email like that.
Yeah, you didn't, Jerry? Not sure why,
well,
but yeah.
Please.
So
I have something to add to this, but go ahead.
It came from Juan, right? Came from Juan.
It came from Juan.
1Password, the founder.
So I have, and I think at least one of you guys do, like I have my company account and then I have my family account, and we have it through the ACN program, or we have the company account through the ACN program, and then we get a free family account. So I was a little concerned because I have 5 users on my company account, and then we were allowing one of my clients to access one of our vaults. So it was a guest account, but it was a 6th person. And so I checked in with them and they said, if you move to MSP, you'll get charged for that 6th person. The 5 are free and you'll get charged for the additional person, even though they're just a guest user. So I logged in and I saw she hadn't accessed the vault in like 3 years. So I was like, all right, you're out. So no big deal there.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was down to 5 and they proceeded on the back end. We just had to send an email back to them to proceed with the switch over to the MSP portal. And it was really, really seamless, nice and easy. I had access to the MSP portal, but then I quickly realized I got an email that said, like, your family account has been disconnected. I was like, oh no, I didn't think about that. And I started to get worried that I would now have a family account that I had to pay for. But I reached out to support and they quickly responded. They're like, oh no, here's a step. You just add it right back in. Sorry, we didn't let you know about that. And so I went in and I relinked the family account, and nobody on their devices had to do anything different whatsoever. And it was perfect. So the migration to MSP was great on that end. I just I haven't added any clients yet or done anything to say, here's what makes it worth it, or here's the, revenue from that. But I'm starting out. And Jerry, you had a question on it too, I think, right?
Yeah, so I reached out to my representative, whose name is Kate Humphreys. She's the senior accounting manager for MSP. And she said, just like you uh, echoed, Sam, 5 free internal use licenses, then just $5 per user per month for your internal team. The same trusted security model plus enhanced technician access and activity logs. And then $5 US per user per month based on our business plan plus free family plans for all.
Hmm.
So that means that I don't know what that means. So,
If you have
like
more than
for
5, right?
Yeah.
It would be
I
$5
guess
per
why would
month.
she state it twice though? So
Uh,
I guess if I wanted to be added to my client's repository, it would cost me $5 on this. That's the
is
way
that
I'm understanding this. And then I would still get
okay?
my free family plan. So the way I use 1Password right now, I have a free family plan, but I didn't really see any need for me to switch because I'm not sure I have anybody who's gonna. I would have to eat that $5. So now I'm paying them $60 when I didn't. For instance, I have a few clients, two to be exact, that pay for my seat on 1Password,
Right.
and I like that a lot better than me paying for the seat and eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, thank you for all this information. I'm going to sit tight as of now, but I don't know if I had a little bit more traction or a little bit more client engagement with 1Password, I would do it. I don't know. It would have to match for the individual. I think it's a little different for you guys because you have air quotes teams. So in your case, Joe and Sam, it makes sense to do this right away so that you can take advantage of this. But for the solopreneur, there's no real gain right now for me.
I guess I get my
Right.
line of thinking is there's no downside though. It doesn't appear so anyway. So you could switch it over and be ready for a
Yeah,
potential MSP opportunity.
preneur ready,
Right.
as we say
Pretty,
in the
what's your
business.
latest preneur? Yeah.
Well, let's talk about their pricing also for our clients. I mean, they have individuals and families, fine. Then you get into business, which is really where this is relevant. I haven't found a
Hmm.
need in a family or individual case.
Yeah,
Lately now that
right.
Apple's built-in stuff is so much better. But the team starter pack is up to 10 users per month for 1995. So you could be paying as little as $2 per user per month with the Teams plan. And in that case, if they have 5 people in the company, 6 people, right, up to 9, there's a free slot for you because you get up to 10. So they're
Hmm.
already essentially paying for you to just take up one of their seats, and just be able to manage them individually and just sign in online and deal with, adding a user, approving a user, getting somebody else, resetting their MFA, creating a vault, sharing a vault, whatever. You can do all that stuff through their account with one of the seats. That's a no brainer to add yourself as their tech consultant manager of their 1Password. But if they're on the business plan, they're paying $7.99 per user per month. That's also when paid annually, so they have to kind of prepay for the year for that number of users. So again, it goes from as low as $2 per month right up to $8 per user per month, for that business plan. So that may be a tough pill for them to swallow for some of our clients who are facing paying $8 per month just for you to have access to their vault. I'd be really curious to compare in a situation like that the path forward like Sam's describing. Okay, send an email to say, yeah, let's do it, right? So turn my account into the MSP plan. Assuming I have 5 people or fewer on my team, as we discussed, it's transparent to me. There should be no real
Hmm.
change other than the step of, reconnecting the family account or whatever the case may be. Um, I'm not clear yet if, like Jerry said, that's going to cost me $5 per month per client of mine, essentially, to be able to manage them, or if because I only have 2 people, 2 full-time employees on my team right now, Actually, really, I would need this for subcontractors as well. So Jerry, you would need to be like a user on my account that it takes up a seat of my MSP plan, I guess, leaving 1 or 2 free seats or whatever it is. Can I use those toward my client, like client whatever 1Password accounts?
Well,
And do
yeah,
you see that as a
this.
cost to them or to me
So
where that goes?
right. So good point. So I actually read a little bit more of the exchange I had with her, and I said, my understanding was that there'd be no charge since we are Apple consultants for the MSP account. Is that correct? And
Right.
she said, the Apple Consultants free promotion is only available for 1Password Direct. MSP is billed differently. See below. And that's what I read
Okay.
earlier.
Yeah, and I did confirm also with my salesperson that if I didn't like it or something went south, that I could revert back to the ACN plan. So that was
Okay.
a good piece of information as well, because I was a little concerned. You know, I didn't want to lose out on this free option if I did something and I didn't
Right.
like it.
Mhm.
So it seems like you can at least backtrack if you had to.
Okay, that's good to know. So I would ask you to report back, Sam, when you've got your first MSP, client connected to your plan. Um, I guess the one question is like, does that just bill them? Does that add a seat, on their plan, or does that add a seat on your plan, or both? Who's paying
Yours, Sam's plan.
yours? Which I
Yeah.
guess makes sense, and then it would just be passed on to the client. Like, I mean, it also means essentially you're only paying $5 a month per, um, you know,
Well,
per client, right?
that's the thing I'm not sure of, like, because I don't know that it's the $5 plan for our MSP customers. Because like if I go into my MSP portal, I can add a new customer and then they have their own portal. It's
Yeah,
not like part of my portal, but I can't imagine that given 1Password publishes its pricing publicly that we would, because $5 a user for a team wouldn't make sense. Like I couldn't get any MSP clients under 10 users if it was $5 a user, right?
mm,
So like I got to imagine that's what I'm trying to figure out. There's got to be some pricing for us on those plans that are on the back end that like we get billed $16 for a team's account and we can bill them $19.95 or something. You
I
So
think
know?
I smell a little flim flam here
yeah,
from
well,
1Password.
is the point of this that you can resell it to your clients, or I thought the point of this was
No,
that we can just like have access to their
right.
to prevent the whole like we get they get locked out because they screw up the MFA. Like this happened, I told this story on 2 recent shows. This happened to 2
Right.
different clients.
But
um
isn't there an option for reselling in here as well? I
No.
gotta look. I gotta look.
That'd be interesting. Well, and then to more to that point, like if they're on a team starter pack and they're paying $20 a month and they have, again, they're only using 8 seats or something like that. In theory, I could just be added as one of their seats for free, versus like me paying $5 for the privilege of managing their team's account. Can I even manage their team's account, or do they have to be on a business account? These are some of my questions. This is why I wanted to have someone from 1Password on the show
Yeah.
to actually promote this to their to our listeners and answer some of our questions. But here we are struggling.
We need Kate Humphreys on here.
Yeah, I'll look into this more. I have 2 clients that have 1Password. I just need to contact them so I can add the accounts, and then I'll know more
Right.
at that point.
Yeah.
So
What would
You only
Juan
have
do?
2? Yeah,
what?
right. We need to get Juan on the show. 1Password. Sam, you only have 2 clients that are using 1Password?
No, 2
Did I
that
hear
we
that right?
manage for them, but they're not in
Okay.
like an MSP capacity. Yeah, no, plenty of other
Gotcha.
customers use
Gotcha.
like 1Password. We just don't manage it for them.
Right. And it's similar for us. We only have maybe a few that we manage it where we have, like a user on their account, and we really should be on almost all of them because it would just,
Yeah.
make their life easier. They want us to be able to like, yeah, do all the things. Somebody leaves the company, we can, revoke their access. Somebody joins the company, we can invite them and share the correct vaults and whatever the case may be. So yeah, it'd
Right.
be interesting to see more about that. Well, it's good to know that it's easy to get on board and there's no cost in theory to us. Same deal, more or less same deal as what we have now. And you can revert back if you have to. So no downsides.
Excellent.
So I have a UniFi thing. Can we chat about that? Do we have a few minutes here? Let's see. We've been going for 50.
What does
We
the
only
hands
have
of
a
the
few.
clock say?
So I don't have a clock with hands. I need to find one and get back to you.
What does the minute hand say?
I basically
when I was
just
a,
wanted to say, go ahead, Jerry.
when I was a kid, I was really freaked out by grandfather clock on Captain Kangaroo. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I remember Captain Kangaroo. I don't remember the grandfather clock. I'll have to look
Yeah,
that up.
scared the heck out of me. Go ahead, Joe.
Did it just go off randomly? What was the scary part?
Well, he had eyes and everything. He talked.
Oh,
You
yes.
know.
Yeah,
I just looked it up. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound scary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Oh man, is that, and I actually that explains a lot in terms of your time management and like if we're like
The clock.
if we're
I'm
1 minute
very
behind
prompt.
schedule,
Yeah, I
Jerry's
don't want to
very
be,
prompt.
you know,
It all goes
yeah,
back
no,
to that
listen,
grandfather clock on Captain Kangaroo. Who knew?
scared the
I had
heck
no
out of me.
idea.
You better be
Yeah.
on time, Jackson.
I better not bring up the UniFi topic then, because we're gonna go over if I do that, and then the clock's gonna get mad
I
at
turned
you,
into a pumpkin.
Yeah. No, I'll just tease this. Basically, I think I still have issues with my U7 Pro, my UniFi system. I talked about this months and months ago when I went from my UniFi Dream router, like early access model. I switched from that, which was Wi-Fi 5, to a Cloud Gateway Ultra with a U7 Pro. And hey, cool, Wi-Fi 6, 6 gigahertz. That's better than, 5 gigahertz. It's 1 more gigahertz. It's great. Sounds awesome. I wanted that. And so I had all kinds of trouble just walking just down the hallway. And sure, there's the angles of the walls and what's the type of construction. And it's not just about the distance, but the distance is very short. And it seemed crazy that, I would have like literal dropouts of the Wi-Fi connection. And I tried all kinds of things. I thought it was better when I tweaked the setting to, change require the minimum RSI or whatever it's called, minimum signal strength
Riz.
and these kinds of
Minimum Riz.
RISI,
No cap.
minimum Riz,
No
exactly.
cap.
No cap, right? They require minimum
I
risk.
love how
Whatever,
everything
yeah,
comes
baby.
around. It's
Love that.
it's amazing.
Love that.
It's like we planned it.
So it didn't seem to solve it. And what I realized is my troubleshooting was flawed from the beginning. What I should have done is narrow the troubleshooting and just simply turn off 6 gigahertz from the start and see
Yep.
if that was the issue.
Hmm.
And anyway, like ultimately, and this isn't recent, but I ended up doing that. It's much better just with 5 gigahertz.
Yep.
So,
And
hey, it would be cool to get faster speeds and lower, latency here in this very room where the access point is, be able to have 6 gigahertz for that purpose, but be able to revert back quickly to 5 gigahertz as soon as it drops off. I never was able to tune it in where it worked reliably over time. So I may revisit that, but that was just my thinking on that. But Jerry, what's been
and
your
that's
experience with
that's
6? Yeah.
exactly what I had to do in the educational environment where they were still
Wow.
complaining. Turned off
Yep.
6.
Yep.
They went silent.
Jerry,
So also, I will point out one other thing. Check your installations. So those of you out there who, like me, had a bunch of UniFi installations before 6 gigahertz, before Wi-Fi 6 was a thing. Are we up to Wi-Fi 7? I don't know. I keep saying Wi-Fi 6, whatever. 6 gigahertz versus 5 gigahertz. So if you migrated your controller and you installed new APs as part of like a network upgrade project for a client, I bet that 6 gigahertz is actually turned off in a lot of your installations.
Mhm.
Don't ask
Yeah.
me how I know, but I'm pretty sure that this is actually why I didn't have this problem with a lot of my clients, and I
Mhm.
experienced it myself. But with a lot of our client installations, we never enabled 6 gigahertz,
Yep.
and clients never asked for it, and they never complained. In fact, they praised how good the upgrade was. So yes, going to new access points was great. And the new controller is always a good idea, and the new gateway and whatever. These things are all nice upgrades, hardware refresh, it's nice and stable, whatever. But it turns out that even though the access points support 6 gigahertz, there's a checkbox in the interface that you have to actually
Mhm.
explicitly enable if the
Yep.
previous controller and the previous access points never had 6 gigahertz. So again, don't ask me how I know, but just word to the wise, check it out. But now I'm wondering, if you're in this situation, hypothetically, what should we do? Should we just enable six gigahertz and see what happens? Because
What
we're
would
not on
Juan do?
site. Yeah, well, right. So, and Jerry,
But
you
I
found
mean,
No,
you
I
had to
think,
turn it off. Yeah,
yeah, you're messing. Don't mess with a good thing. You
yeah,
want trouble? Leave it off.
yeah,
yeah, I think that's the general statement of what you learned too, Joe, right?
yeah. I mean, exactly. I had turned it on, thinking just 1 gigahertz more than before would be good, but no. Ultimately, I ended up turning it off, and it's very stable and fine. I'm not getting those maximum speeds that in theory I could see, in a theoretical test, but again, it's not like it's slow. So, yeah,
5 or 6, whatever it takes.
yep. All right. I think Jerry's ready to call it a night. He's changing backgrounds on us. All
Oh, that
right,
was funny.
everybody. Good talking to you guys. Thanks for inviting me to this show, by the way. You guys like to record without me every once in a while, it seems.
Yeah, how's
So
it
Yeah,
feel, Joe? How's it feel?
Sam and I got some chemistry. What can I
Yeah,
tell you?
that's
that's
right.
good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear. Actually looking forward to hearing it also, to
We're
hearing the
thinking of
show.
starting another podcast.
Be my guest. The more the merrier. The more the merrier. Thanks, everybody, for listening to another episode of Command Control Power, and we'd love to have your support at commandcontrolpower.com. Click on support to follow us on Patreon and pledge monthly to get some extra content, behind-the-scenes episodes, and additional releases, and also to watch us and listen to us live on the live stream. We really appreciate you all listening to Command Control Power. Thanks again.